Okay, here we go. Five, four, three. Hi, everybody. Dugras here with Dugras Reports, reporting live from my house. Welcome to the fifth installment of my Ask Me Anything live. I appreciate you being here. Sean is in the house and says good morning to me. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Um, I'll start with just a couple of brief channel updates. As you may know, I now have members only videos going, and I'd like to thank the small handful of folks who have already joined as members, and I'll read them off here. We have David Hamilton, Jacob Hess, Kevin Ellis, Jose Santiago, Scott Saul, PM, Sean D, and Shad Kerr. Thank you all for being Dugras diehards. If you're wondering, I do have some members only videos out there. I've got about 5 of them so far, and these tend to be the more deeper side, maybe the things I just don't want to be public for, obvious reasons, like if I'm talking about interactions with the general public and I'm sharing some stories or those kind of things. Also, these are the videos that usually don't play quite as well on YouTube, so it can be a situation where I don't want the YouTube algorithm punishing me, so to speak. So yeah, if you would consider, that's only $3 a month for a membership. And for those of you that already are members, I greatly appreciate it. So today we are going to do my normal channel updates and then move on to question and answer. This isn't Ask Me Anything, so feel free to start typing over in the comments. We've got 6 people on board so far. Welcome to all of you. And I'm sure more will pop in as time goes. This episode will also have a little bit of a focus on 2 topics that came up last week, that being the U.S. Bank Altitude Reserve Card, as well as rental cars and sort of the rental car versus Uber type debate. I'm not going to spend the whole time talking about it. I'm just going to do kind of a broad overview because it seemed like a lot of people were really interested in that. So channel updates here. I'll start with an update on the challenge, the quarter and a quarter challenge, using my high quality graphical interface. And I apologize if this is kind of repetitive. There's very little new info since the last 2 weeks. I started out with, oh, by the way, if you don't know, this is to play. It's just a fun thing. Can you get a 250,000 points during the 4th quarter? I started out referring my wife for an Ink Cash card. That's 90,000 points on her side, and I get 40,000 from the referral. We have a pending transaction right now, and then that bonus will be met and locked in. I got the Wells Fargo autograph card, still working on the sign-up bonus for that, but I'm confident that I'll get there. A bank bonus with a small regional bank called Green State Credit Union will get me $200 worth 20,000 points towards the challenge. I have to make 15 transactions in a month with things like debit card, ATM deposits, that kind of thing, and I'm probably about halfway there. So that puts me at 180,000 points and 70,000 points to go to meet the rest of the challenge. In terms of how I'm going to meet that, I talked about the Wells Fargo Aspire or Surpass card, still considering both, but at this point leaning closer to the Surpass as I think about some travel plans my family's going to have the rest of the year. It's looking more and more like it's going to be a little more down low, a little more simple travel. There could be a Hilton resort in the picture, but it's certainly not a for sure thing. PM says, glad to be part of the team. Thank you, PM. Thanks for being a subscriber. Midlife Money Moves gives me some clapping. Cesar Joel's in the house, and he's happy to see me. One of my longtime and biggest fans. Thanks for being here, as always, CJ. So in terms of other ways that I might meet it, so this is interesting. This came in the mail this week. It's a targeted mailer for, maybe I shouldn't put my full mailing address on the internet. It's a targeted mailer for the business gold card from Amex. And it's a 150K targeted offer after spending 15,000, oh, excuse me, merely 10,000 points um, in the first 3 months. So I know some people have been saying there's links out there floating around, and that's a really good sign up bonus. 5,000, excuse me, $10,000 isn't unmanageable. So that would put me way over what I need for the quarter in a quarter challenge. Um, the problem is cash flow. I'm still working on that sign up bonus for the autograph card. I've got another situation where I'm really close to getting the big spend bonus on the IHG business card. It's not super compelling, but I kind of feel like I'm so close. I kind of want to get there. If you spend $20,000 in a calendar year, you get an extra 10,000 points and an extra $100. Plus, you earn whatever points from the actual spend, which is at least 3 points per dollar in IHG points, which isn't fantastic, but it's not terrible either. So I'm debating whether or not I have the spend related bandwidth to get this guy accomplished during the remainder of this calendar year. I just have to apply by the end of the year. So I might do that late December with the idea of finishing it up next year. Hey, but let's talk about it as long as we're here. So the revised Amex Business Gold Card. It gives you 4x points on the top 2 categories in any billing cycle. And I'll try to hold up the little graphic here of what those 6 possible categories are. We have transit, electronics, wireless, advertising, gas stations, and restaurants. And you'll see down here in the corner, it is you only earn the 4x on the first $150,000 each calendar year, which for me is not going to be a problem. It doesn't have grocery, but it does have restaurants. So if you wanted to ditch the regular gold card, the consumer gold card, and get this, you could still get about halfway there. In terms of credits, there is a credit over here, $240 a year, and that's broken down to $20 a month on FedEx, Grubhub, or I can't tell what that says, office supply stores. So I think that would be pretty easy. You could probably go to Staples or Office Depot and buy a $50 or $20 gift card of your choosing, Amazon or whatever, once a month and get that credit to trigger. I don't think with that small of a gift card anyone would throw a fit. I don't think they would claw you back. And then there's Walmart Plus membership, which breaks out to basically enough to cover the monthly membership. I don't know how exciting that is. I would not count it as $395 in credits, but the 240 you could get pretty easily. Now, as it relates to the annual fee on this guy, it stays at the current level. Let's see, where do they have that written down? For now, and then it changes. Okay. So right now the annual fee is $295. If your application is submitted on or after February 1st of 24, it'll be $375. So I don't know that this would be a long-term keeper card, but for a year, it's certainly worth looking into. Now, a data point with Amex is, so my wife is in a situation where she has the consumer gold card, and I plan on dumping that card because I don't, unless we get a really good retention offer. I just don't think the difference between the 4x on grocery and the 3x on grocery that we get with the City Premier is enough of a big deal to make that a keeper card. I know it has the monthly Grubhub and Uber credits, and we use those, but I don't give them full value, and I just don't really love the coupon book. I just talked about the business gold card, so maybe that seems a little hypocritical. I'm willing to play the coupon game book in the first year to get the sign-up bonus. The problem is right now she doesn't have any other Amex cards. That's the only one she has. So if we cancel it, she loses over 400,000 Amex points. So I was going to open a Amex either an everyday card or an everyday preferred card for her. I know it's not a very big sign up bonus. It's like 10 or 15,000. Um, I referred her, which would get me, I think, 15,000 points in referrals if I send it off my platinum card. Unfortunately, she got the dreaded pop up box. So I hit the pause button on that and didn't do it. I can kind of see why she got the pop up because there was, she had the platinum card for 2 years. At the end of the first year, second year, she canceled it. We never put a whole lot of spend on it. Only kept it a second year because of the sign up bonus. So I'm afraid she is in pop up jail now, unfortunately. And I don't love the idea of spending enough on it to get out of it. Now, I could just go ahead and get the everyday card anyway, just as a place to kind of save her Amex points without getting the sign up bonus. I would still get the referral at least, but that's kind of disappointing to not get the sign up bonus, even when it is only 10 or 15,000 points. I can check and see if she can get the sign up bonus on the Blue Business Plus, but that's only 15,000, so also not that exciting. So I'm kind of debating things in that regard, where to go. The offer that I got in the mail is only targeted to me. It's not targeted to my wife, and I don't know if I use someone else's targeted offer code, if that's going to throw up red flags or not. Excuse me, just a second. I've still got a little bit of that runny nose thing going on. Then we'll get back to some comments. Unsure if I actually muted that. So if you heard me blow my nose, I apologize. PM says I may have hit my quarter and a quarter with a bank account bonus. Got to do a little research. We'll update ASAP. Awesome. Let us know, PM. Frugal Dad Finance says Amex has been targeting me with 150K bonus for the platinum. Not sure I can get value from that card. There is a platinum 170K bonus floating out there if you can find it. Frugal Dad. It's kind of luck of the draw. You have to try a bunch of incognito windows and those kind of things. Cesar Joel says, recently completed the 250K challenge. Soon I will upload a Spanish video with the details, but for those who don't speak Spanish, I was very lucky. 150K Marriott, 60K in Amex referrals, and 50K in Discover referrals. Hey, way to go. I wish I could get more referrals. I did max out my referrals on my wife's gold card back when Frequent Miler was doing a thing where they were sharing people's referrals. And CJ also adds a 20K Hilton referral. Awesome. All right. Well, let's transition here to any questions that were asked over on the community tab. Let's take a quick look. Well, as of right now, there's only one, and it's from the man himself, Cesar. Thank you. He says, what cards do you plan on canceling in 2024? I do have a plan for that. Right now, if you count me plus the misses plus business cards, we've got somewhere around 32-ish. I'd really like to kind of trim that down. So one is going to be my Discover card. I never use it. I know you just said you get a bunch of Discover referrals, and maybe I should push that more, but it doesn't really fit the kind of videos that I make so much. Just $75 a quarter doesn't really excite me anymore. And I just want to get rid of whole issuers, like ones I don't use very much, just because I don't want to keep track of my logins and those kind of things. I'm very particular with like checking my balances multiple times a month. And right now it's just kind of tedious. So if I can chop out one whole bank, that'll make that easier for me. So definitely the Discover card. My wife has a Bank of America card that we never use. This was before we got into points and miles. It's called a Bank America card. Doesn't even have rewards on it. So we'll cancel that one at some point, maybe even before the end of the year. And then Capital One is on the chopping block for consideration. I have a older Venture One card, which I never use. I just keep around for credit history, and the Venture X. I do know that might be a little controversial because, you know, some people love the Venture X and the lounges and those kind of things. There is some overlap. There is a ton of overlap, and I don't like saying I'm going to prepay, for the privilege of using the portal. It's just not that exciting to me. So there's some cards that I'm thinking about canceling. Um, and those are the only ones right now. Well, I take that back. There is a Chase card that I would consider canceling. Um, I have a Chase Freedom Flex and a Chase Original Freedom. My wife has a Chase Freedom Flex and two Original Freedoms. And I feel like we probably don't need both of those. Even if I max out the quarterly thing, let's see, $1,500 per card, that's $3,000 of spend per person, double that. $6,000 of bandwidth and quarterly rotating categories is probably enough for us. So I just don't need a whole nother one. All right. Cesar says the only reason I've kept the Discover is 4 referrals. I have 3 Discover videos and keep using those referrals. He understands canceling the Venture X. Sledge is in the house. Hey, Sledge, how you doing? And he says, MR, do your research is in the building. And then, of course, they're saluting each other. I'm not a veteran. Thank you for the veterans in the house. Yesterday was Veterans Day. Awesome. Cool to you guys. Oh, let's see. Okay, back to the original things we were going over. So yeah, I'm going to put a ribbon on the business gold discussion. And if you have anything you want to add to that or questions on that, let me know. So the theme of today's video is rental cars and how rental cars fit in with the US Bank Altitude Reserve Card. So I have the Altitude Reserve Card from US Bank, and I'm going to go over pretty much every single feature of it and why I think it's kind of my sweetheart card. Seems like everyone has a credit card that is their sweetheart card. Let me know what yours is. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the best credit card in your wallet. It's just there's something about it that really draws you, and you can't help but promote it at every turn. And this one is mine. This is my sweetheart card. In fact, if you look in one of my older videos, it says something like why I love the Altitude Reserve. And there's a picture of me and a heart like between me and the card. Excuse me, just a moment. All right. So first of all, let's talk about why this topic is coming to the forefront of my mind. In the last live stream and in one other video, some people talked about the uh, team rental car versus team rideshare. And I realize it's not quite that black and white, but I'm kind of on team rental car, at least, 80% on team rental car. And it's because of the kind of travel that I like to do. And most of you probably know this, but I'll say it anyway. So when I got into the points and miles game 4 years ago in 2019, it's because I wanted to take a decent trip once a year with my family and not have to pay for it or pay very little. And I wanted to do a few exploratory type trips. And these are like long weekend trips, like usually 3-day or 4-day weekends. And since that time, I've come to nickname them RIP trips, RIP. And each of those letters stands for something. R is for rental. That's a car to get you where you want to go. I stands for in, like a hotel. You got to sleep, bro. P stands for plane. It's an airplane to get you where you want to go. And that's a RIP trip. And now you know, so you're good to go. That's the RIP trip wrap. It's probably the worst wrap in history. So rental car, in other words, hotel or lodging, and plane. So if you can cover those 3 things on a weekend getaway, you might have to pay a little for food and, whatever attractions you're going to do, but you can cover most things. So a typical RIP trip for me will look something like this. I'll just use one that I did a year or 2 ago. I flew from my home airport of Des Moines, Iowa to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with a layover in St. Louis. I rented a car and I kind of went out into the countryside the very next day or right away. I saw like a historic battlefield. a monument where some guy that was a British soldier in the Revolutionary War was buried. I saw a really cool stone arch bridge in Western Maryland. I went to the place where Maryland, West Virginia, Pennsylvania meet, which is like a monument literally at the end of someone's driveway in the woods. These are not necessarily the kind of, big Las Vegas type attractions lots of people do, but I'm kind of a history nerd. So I like old bridges, Civil War monuments, battlefields, Revolutionary War stuff. There's a suspension bridge in Wheeling, West Virginia, that is one of, if not the only pre Civil War suspension bridge that still exists. So I want to see that kind of stuff. Now, that meant I flew into Pittsburgh and I spent time in three different states. All of those, I spent one night in Pittsburgh itself. I spent a night in Morgantown, West Virginia, and I spent a night in Wheeling, West Virginia before returning to Pittsburgh, dropping off my rental car, and flying home. You can probably see that taking an Uber for all of those just doesn't work very well. First of all, even if you can get a ride, what am I going to say? Hey, I'm going to the monument where Frank Robinson, a Civil War soldier, was buried. It's a mile and a half out of town. And when I get there, I want to get out and look around for 45 minutes to an hour. So just wait here in the parking lot and pick me up. And then after that, I want to drive 2 hours south to Morgantown and ride the little tram thingamajig that's unique at West Virginia University. They're not just going to wait for you. And I'm being picked up in obscure places where half the time I'm the only person there or one of only a small handful of people there. I've got videos on some of these things on my channel. They're not always popular, but if you want to check them out, you sure can. So I kind of have to do a rental car if I want to do those sorts of things. So that's why I'm more leaning towards team rental car. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't have any philosophical opposition to an Uber. And I know there's a lot of people out there. In fact, I think the majority of content creators that I see don't even bother renting cars. If you're flying to Fort Lauderdale and like Uncle Luke, you just want to sit in a resort for a week and maybe go out to a couple restaurants and a couple nearby things. Yeah, it makes way more sense to take Uber or Lyft. So nothing against you guys, just what I do with my spare time is a little different. So that's where the US Bank Altitude Reserve comes into play, and it's the ultimate rental car card. And we'll get into that a little bit here. Now I'm going to pull up the US Bank website. It tends to run kind of slow while I'm live streaming, so I apologize if there's a little delay here. I know some live streamers have the ability to share their screens, and I probably could figure that out someday, but unfortunately, I haven't figured it out yet. So let's talk about what the US Bank Altitude Reserve does, and we'll talk about both the important features and we'll briefly touch on the less important features. So there is a sign up bonus right now, and as far as I know, it's been the same sign up bonus for a long time. If you spend $4,500 in 90 days, you get 50,000 points. 50,000 bonus points is worth $750 if used on travel. The Altitude Reserve has fixed redemptions of 1.5 cents per point if used on travel. And there's a couple different ways you can use it on travel, which is one of the things that makes the card OP. Now, it does not have transfer partners. That is a bit of a limitation. But it doesn't necessarily cause any harm here. In terms of earnings, it does earn 5x on prepaid hotels and car rentals in their own portal. I never use that, so I'm not even going to worry about that. It earns 3x on mobile wallets, including Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay. So this card actually lives on my phone. I almost never use the physical card except for travel. 3x on mobile wallets is gigantic because there's tons of places that take tap to pay. And then it has $325 in annual credits. And these are the good kind of annual credits that I would say are very close to worth face value. The annual fee is $400. So if you use all of those annual credits, it would be net effective fee of $75. The annual credits are on travel and dining. It's not like Amex where it's doled out in little doses month by month. You can do it all at once. So if you use this to book a $325 hotel, as soon as your new card member year begins, it would credit the whole thing immediately. If you went to a fancy restaurant and spent $325 on supper, it would credit the whole thing immediately. I don't know about you, but I'm going to spend at least $325 a year on dining. So I would just round up and say that's worth face value. So it's a $75 net annual fee card. Now, in addition to that, this has not been the case for everyone, but in my personal experience, um, each year that I've had the card, other than year zero when I signed up. So let's see, I got it in 2019. So I did a retention offer in 2020, 2021, and 2022. My next one will come up around February of 24. The first year, I just asked for a retention offer and they gave me 10,000 points. And each of the last 2 years, they gave me 5,000 points just for asking. Now, 5,000 points would normally be worth $50 in cash. But again, if you use it for travel, that's worth $75. So that customer loyalty retention plus the 325 is $400. So in my case, this has been a net no annual fee card, and it does a lot of cool things for no annual fee. All right, I'm behind on comments, so I'm going to call a little timeout on the altitude reserve discussion, and then we'll get back into those comments, or excuse me, back into more of that. Cesar says 11 people in the building. Hit that like button to help out the channel. I appreciate that. And hey, it looks like we're up to 15 so far. Sledge says, I hate driving when I travel, so I almost never rent cars. Very understandable. The Popped Bubble says, mine is the US Bank Cash Plus with the utilities category. I'm assuming you mean your Sweetheart card. And that's a really good one, too. I have used that a lot in the past. Cesar says, next trip, have to rent a car, but prefers Uber. PM says, I don't mind driving to vacation, but I hate driving while on vacation. So mostly Ubers for us. Cesar says the Aspire covers that area with 7X and the Platinum with the Status. I'm not sure which area you're referring to. Sorry, I got kind of behind on my comments. Midlife Money Move says, I first heard that as Rip Trip, which is a bit ominous. Rip like rest in peace with a picture of a skull. I gets that. Sledge says, I get $45 in Uber credits monthly and have Uber One. Makes sense. Engineer is in the house. How you doing, Engineer, fellow Iowan? I used to have the altitude reserve. The issue for me was point earnings. I had a month where they gave me 1x for Google and Samsung Pay. I called in, they blamed. Sorry, my computer's being dumb. Lowe's, Taco Bell, etc. My product changed to Cash Plus. Sorry you went through that. I've never personally had that issue, but I certainly don't want to downplay your experience. Sam K says, hello, everybody. Hello there, in the words of Obi-Wan. All right, so back to my ongoing rant, whatever you want to call it, about the altitude reserve. Oh, we dropped down to 14 people. So sorry if this is boring, but I'm gonna press ahead here. Maybe I'm the only person in the world that uses rental cards. So the card has other benefits. It gives complimentary Priority Pass Select. Now, this is the kind where it's not unlimited. You get 8 visits. And it used to be you had to dole those out, 4 for you, 4 for a guest. Now you can dole it out however you want. So if you want to go 8 times, you want to get a guest in 8 times, whatever. So right now I have the Venture X and the Business Platinum, so that doesn't really harm anything. But in the long run, that might be an issue. One thing where this has a secret superpower that comes into play is this is the version of Priority Pass that does allow restaurants. And I did run into a situation where I had to use the restaurant benefit, and I had forgotten that Capital One dumped it like 8 months after the Venture X came out, and I had to quickly log in and break out my rarely used US Bank Altitude Reserve Priority Pass membership. And hey, got a breakfast with some biscuits and gravy for free because of that. It does have your run-of-the-mill TSA or global entry check. It has pretty ordinary travel protections, trip delay, trip cancellation, lost luggage, etc. I haven't got into that deeply because I generally haven't used it for flights. I use like my Sapphire Preferred or something like that for flights. All right, now, despite the terrible marketing from US Bank on this card, who doesn't even mention the best feature of the card, I'm going to get into that now. And the best feature of the card is real-time rewards. Now, what is real-time rewards? So if you use the Altitude Reserve to pay for categories of your choice, and you should only choose travel, they will send you a text message. And when you get that text message, you can respond back to it with the word redeem, and they will automatically give you a statement credit for that travel with the 1.5 cents per point ratio. So, as a random example here, I should be able to do this in my head. Let's say that you spend $100 on travel. They would send you a text message that says, do you want to use 6,700 points to functionally pay yourself back on that travel? They don't call it pay yourself back, but something like that. It would actually be 6,666 or something along those lines. And you just reply back with redeem, the keyword, and it automatically puts a statement credit on your account for that. Now, there's a couple caveats with that. Caveat number one is last I knew, and this may have changed, I've seen a mixture of data points. They will only let you do that if you have enough points to cover all of it at what would be 1 cent per point. So in my example of $100 worth of travel, you would have to have at least 10,000 points in your account to trigger the text message. That may have changed, but last I knew that's the case. Sounds a little weird. You have to have 10,000 points to use 6,667 points, but that's the way it is. The second caveat is it comes right away as soon as the pending charge shows up. Now, that's especially important with rental cars because in my experience, at least the ones that I know of are Avis and Hertz. They will put a temporary hold on your card for more than the actual cost of the rental car. So let's just say, and it's usually about $200 more. So let's say that you are planning on a rental car and you know it's going to cost you right around $300. You will get a temporary charge of $500, which means you need to have at least excuse me, brain fart. You need to have at least 50,000 points in the account to use it, even though it would only be something like 33,500 points. So that's just kind of a heads up. Now, I actually find that to be an advantage because when I go on these RIP trips or any kind of trip, really, you're always going to have expenses that are either impossible or very difficult to cover with a credit card. Say that you want to take a boat tour and, it doesn't code as travel. It just codes as like general merchandise or something. You either have to cash out at 1 cent per point, dip into your travel savings account, or just eat it. My personal rule is I'm not allowed to use my family budget to pay for travel. So I have to account for every single penny on a trip. So, that extra $200 that the rental car company charges and then drops off once your trip is over, but I already cashed out with the assumption of using that. That's sort of like I've got this slush fund or this pool of $200 that I can use for other things in my trip, like dining, like miscellaneous, going to a museum, or things that don't code as travel, those kind of things. Or even if it does code as travel, I just don't have a good way of using points on it. Uh, let's catch up here on the comments. Oh, there's not a whole bunch of extra comments. Sam K, thank you so much for the super chat. Sam K gave me £2 towards extra coffee. Legend. Thank you for that. I kind of sort of remembered, Sam, that you're based out of the UK, and obviously you gave me a gift in pounds, which I appreciate, and I'll get some Mountain Dew or something with that. And I am aware from multiple comments on my travel in England video that the reason why Mountain Dew in the UK is different than Mountain Dew in the US is because of um, ingredients like high fructose corn syrup that are banned in Europe and those surrounding areas. So I would be really curious, Sam, to find out how you discovered my channel. Was it one of my England videos and you just stuck with it, or are you an expat or something like that? And Cesar, welcome, Sam. I do have super chats enabled now that I offer membership. So if you want to send me $2 or $3, just out of the goodness of your heart, I'm not going to insist, but I'm certainly not going to turn it down either. All right, back to the altitude reserve talk and car rentals. So another factor is the although it's not on their front page, again, dumb marketing. The U.S. Bank Altitude Reserve does have primary car rental insurance. With that in mind, I've never had to file a claim, but that's kind of important to me because I got in a fender bender a couple years ago. I've got two 15-year-old drivers who are going to be turning 16 in the not too distant future, and probably my insurance premiums are going to go up as is. So the last thing I want to do is if I'm in Kentucky and hit a telephone pole with my rental car, I really just would rather deal with the credit card company and not have that reported to my insurance company. So I want a card with primary, not secondary car rental insurance. Um, the difference is with secondary car rental insurance, you still have to file a claim with your insurance company, and then the credit card company will step in and just cover your copay or deductible, not the whole thing. With primary, they cover the whole thing. You don't even have to file a claim with your insurance company. Now, in the world of renting cars, it is important to remember that the primary or secondary car rental coverage only covers comprehensive and collision. So if you, in my example, hit a telephone pole, that would be collision. You've damaged the rental car. It would cover that. Now, if the city who owns the telephone pole makes an assessment against you, you're liable for that. So that would be liability coverage. So you would have to report that to your insurance. I don't think most cities would, probably. But let's say you get in a really bad car accident where there's injuries, you and another car involved. The companies are going to do an investigation and determine who's at fault. Now, if the other guy's at fault, then you can just fall back on your US Bank Altitude Reserve or whoever and the primary rental car insurance. They'll cover you. They might subrogate, meaning they might go after the other company and try to recover some of that, or the other guy has to pay for it. But if the authorities determine that you are at fault, then you better have liability and medical type stuff where you have to pay other people's medical bills through your own car insurance company. Now, before I went to England last summer, I did reach out to State Farm, my insurance company, and they assured me that my regular automobile insurance would cover me in that example for liability and paying other people's medical bills in that scenario. And that works in any country with except a handful, I can't remember which ones it is, a couple war-torn African countries, Jamaica, and Ireland. I don't know why Ireland is on that list or something like that. So if you're going to one of those more I guess insurance companies don't like them type countries, you might have to get some extra like temporary travel insurance or something like that. I do also have an annual policy through Allianz that I got for this year. It'll expire next spring. I did a whole separate video on that if you want to check it out. There's just something about peace of mind with medical evacuation, those kinds of things. Now, another caveat, and I'm searching for the frequent miler website here, um, on the altitude reserve, is that the real-time rewards only work if it's a charge that on the actual transactional ends is in America. So the way it's worded is it would only apply to travel on a US based airline, a US based rental car company, those kinds of things. Now, there are some data points out there um, about, like, let's say that you, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. Let's say that you go to England and you rent from a Hertz there. Well, because it's an American company, it'll still charge as American. You can still use real time rewards, but I can't guarantee that it would work outside the US. I'm now typing in to Frequent Miler, real-time rewards, what works where. Frequent Miler has done a bang-up job of keeping a post active that goes all the way back to 2020 with just different data points reported by people of where real-time rewards works. And I'm going to go over some of these that show up. Aeromexico booked via Expedia was successful, but Air Europa was not successful. Air Europa through Orbitz was successful. So even travel aggregators like Expedia, Orbitz, Hotwire, those kind of places, as long as they're charged through that and it's an American charge, it would work. Allegiant Airlines successful, American Airlines successful, American Airlines e-gift cards successful. This is kind of odd. An Avianca ticket purchase was successful. A British Airways ticket was successful. These are just data points from different people. Obviously, Delta would be successful. Iceland Air failed. Lufthansa change fee processed in New York City was successful. Southwest Airlines was successful. United Airlines was successful. Uzbekistan's Airways, not successful. Virgin Atlantic fee for a flight originating in the US, successful. Virgin Atlantic for a flight originating in the UK, failed. Going over some hotel and lodging. Booking.com was successful. A Sheraton was successful. Now, I know back in the day, I booked directly with a Choice Hotel. I think it was a sleep-in, and that was successful. So I think the general idea is all American hotels would be successful. An Avis car rental in France booked on a U.S. website, successful. Hertz in Canada failed. Hertz in the U.S. was successful. Lyft and Uber, as long as they're in the U.S., always successful. Multiple cruises were successful. This is all for real-time rewards. Amtrak was successful, and I've personally experienced that. Now, I don't do a lot of Amtrak travel, but I think the two that I have done have been really cool. This is also kind of your ultimate Amtrak card because other than the Amtrak card itself, which you probably don't want to get unless you're using it a ton, there's really no way to pay for Amtrak with points. So there's some examples. It's just go to frequentmiler.com and do a search for mobile rewards, what works where. Yeah, so I have found that just in my life, and I'm a pretty average guy with an average corporate job, a very average family income, with mobile wallet purchases, I generally earn enough points to get about 2 free car rentals per year, usually in the $300, $350 range, kind of on those long 4-day weekend type trips. So for a card that I can make net no annual fee, there's no reason for me not to keep it. I know there's some data points out there that it's very difficult to get approved for the US Bank Altitude Reserve. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. I do have a very long credit history going all the way back to the year 2000. So I have that advantage. And I've had a relationship with US Bank for a really long time. I won't get into the details here, but really, since I was a child, functionally, I had a checking or savings account with them. Um, yeah, so I think that card will always have a place in my wallet. Sam mentioned that he found me possibly through one of my videos. Thanks for that. And he says we generally have good public transport in the UK too. Yeah, that's true. I don't know much about it personally, but from my very, very little time there, I did observe that. I think in the UK, you're probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you wanted to go to some small seaside town, not super small, but maybe like, 5 or 10,000 people and see some random historical thing, it's way more likely there'll be a train that goes there in the UK than there would be here in the US. In fact, in the US, it's very unlikely unless it just happens to be on one of those Amtrak routes. I do think America is slowly ramping up towards more train travel. There's some stuff I've seen. There is a private company that operates in South Florida in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area that I'd like to check out someday. That is a private light rail type company. And they're going to run a line up to Disney World in Orlando in the near future. In fact, I think construction's already started. They're going to do some stuff in the southwestern part of the US, that kind of thing. All right, guys, I'm ready for general questions. It doesn't have to be about the altitude reserve or rental cars, but we can keep talking about that if you want to. So I'll transition to talking a little bit about rental cars in general. So there is a website called AutoSlash. I think it's autoslash.com, but it might be .net or something like that. So don't take my word for it. Just do a Google search for AutoSlash, all one word. There's two different ways you can use AutoSlash. You can book an existing hotel, an existing rental car in the future. Don't pay for the rental car in advance. Do a pay at the counter type situation. Put in the details with your reservation number, and then AutoSlash will automatically monitor it. And if a cheaper rate is found, it'll send you notice. In my experience, a cheaper rate is almost always found. The other option is just to book from scratch through AutoSlash. Now, some people don't like it because you do have to give them your email. It doesn't give you instantaneous results. But I've never found that they've spammed me or anything like that. So I'm totally comfortable with giving them my email. So what I like to do is if I have a trip planned and I know the dates, I'll go out and rent a car through whoever I want to. Right now it's Hertz because I have the President Circle status with them through the Capital One Venture X. In the past I've used Avis, but my love of Avis is diminishing rather quickly. So with that in mind, I will do that. It may not be a great rate. Then I'll put that into AutoSlash. They must have some backdoor deals, and usually they're with Priceline. But what I have found is with both Avis and Hertz, in the Priceline reservation, I can put in my membership number. So I still get my perks if I have them, which, as long as the airport is big enough to handle it, should include skipping the wait in line and going directly to the counter that's in the parking garage. I know I've had that work at least twice through AutoSlash. It worked for me in Norfolk, Virginia, which isn't a really big airport. It was with Avis. I was allowed to skip the line, go out to the garage. And the interesting thing was I got out to that little booth in the garage. There was one employee, and there was this was in like 2021 when rental car companies were having problems. One of those peg boards where keys go on the back. There was one set of keys. And as I'm walking up to the booth, the person working it says, "You must be Mr. Rose," or something like that. I'm like, "How'd you know?" It's like, "We've only got one car left, and it's for you." So I was really glad I got to skip the counter. So he's like, "I hope you're okay with Acura or whatever it was," and handed me the keys, and I just had to show him the credit card, which they already had on file, and I was able to go. You know, it was like get off the plane, walk 10 minutes, go to the garage, walk 3 minutes, get in the car, and leave. So that's really nice. One moment. Um, when I was at the creator meetup in Las Vegas, and I do plan to do a video on how I paid for that. I just haven't got around to it. Sorry. When I did the creator meetup in Las Vegas back on Labor Day, I had my Hertz President Circle number typed into the Priceline reservation. That was a nasty night. There was a bunch of storms in the area. It was like the most flooding Vegas had had in like 2 or 3 years. So there were truckloads of delayed flights, and like they all got into Vegas at the same time on Friday night. Um, Close to midnight, I think, maybe 11 p.m., something like that. So my brother-in-law was with me. His name is Nate. We had to wait in line to take the shuttle from the airport to the rental car hub. All the rental cars are places are at the same spot, which was annoying because we waited in line for like an hour. But once I got to Hertz, there was only like two people working. I don't know what it is with rental car companies. They always have not enough people working the desk. They have like 7 desks and 1 or 2 lanes are open. And based on the flow of traffic, I would have waited there another hour if I didn't have President Circle status. But I got to skip that second line, go directly out to the garage where there's someone just roving around with a tablet who tells me, well, um, a lot of our like President's Circle normal cars are taken, so you can just take one of these extra super special upgrade cards. And I got this big old honking SUV, which I didn't need, but that's okay. I didn't have to pay any extra for it. So yeah, the being able to put your membership number in is really great. It doesn't always work. Didn't work for me in London Heathrow for whatever reason. I had to wait an extra hour, but when it does work, it's pretty awesome. Another tip that I will mention about the altitude reserve. Um, I have to kind of take two loose ends of thoughts and tie them together. So I'm gonna try my best to do that here. Um, so because of that, when I'm using Auto Slash, I'll book a reservation directly with the company, let's say Hertz. Then I'll put in my info into Auto Slash. And after Auto Slash finds the better rate, I'll cancel the first reservation, just keep the one from Auto Slash. But since I had a bad experience in Pittsburgh that one time, I almost always book a backup car rental, um, where it'll be with some other company that I don't have any kind of status or anything on file with, like Dollar or um, Alamo, something like that. Um, Make sure if you're using a backup car rental, you don't put your credit card information on file with that company. Don't have it saved in like your frequent traveler profile. One time I booked a car rental with Enterprise as the one I was planning on using because it was like $30 cheaper, and booked the backup with Avis. But with the Avis one, I put my membership number in and they had the altitude reserve on file. So while I was on the plane, like 4 hours before landing, they actually put the charge on this one. So I had to use the real time rewards on that one. So I didn't get to do it in the order I wanted to. It wasn't a big deal. It was only like an extra $30. But what I've learned now is that rental car companies, if you have a card on file, make sure you only have one. Make sure it's the altitude reserve if that's what you want to use. And just be aware that they will often charge it before you even land, because I think they want to have as much processed as possible so that you can skip the counter. And I certainly can't blame them for that. Cesar says he likes the Hertz presidential status, and I've only used it twice, but the two times I've used it's been really good. Sean mentions channel member Sean D. Does the U.S. Bank Altitude Reserve code Verbo or Vacasa as travel for rapid rewards? I think you mean real-time rewards. Or is it only traditional hotels and such? Um, I'll be honest, Sean, I've never tried that. I'll go back to that frequent miler page that I was at a little bit ago and see if I can find a data point that somebody else listed. I think somebody mentioned Airbnb, um, but let's find out here. Okay, I'm scrolling down to hotel and lodging. Nope. Says Airbnb fail, fail, fail. VRBO fail. So if Airbnb and VRBO both failed, my strong assumption would be the Casa would also fail. So sorry about that. Yep, looks like just traditional hotels. Now you can book the hotels through, booking.com, Priceline, those sorts of things. Sam mentions that in Scotland, there's a plane journey that lasts 2 minutes to an island. Yeah, that's awesome. I would love to do that someday. I have seen YouTube videos of people doing that. I think it's the world's shortest commercial flight. PM asks, anything big planned, family trip or rip trip? Yes, they're planned, but only in the very generic sense. For summer travel, this will be kind of the big family vacation. Um, we're probably going to go somewhere to the US East Coast, and I'm not sure where yet. We're leaning towards Washington D.C. area, or a combination where we're like on a beach for a while, in the Washington D.C. area for a while. Just do the patriotic American stuff, see the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, maybe go up to Philadelphia and see Independence Hall, those kind of things. Ring the Liberty Bell a couple times. Um, I did book, somewhat speculatively. I opened my IHG app a few days ago, and there was a discount. Like not every single, but a whole bunch of places were discounted by about 20% on the points cost. So I did book us a room at a Holiday Inn that's right on the ocean in the area around Virginia Beach and Norfolk, Virginia. Don't know if we'll keep that. That was sort of speculative. Of course, it's with points, so I can get all my points back if I cancel. So that's a possibility. As far as Rip Trip goes, and thank you for asking, I want to kind of launch into a channel update that's a little more philosophical. I would like to go back to West Virginia. I did that as part of my 2 years ago October Rip Trip. It was a very beautiful area, but I only spent um, like 24 hours there, maybe not even. So I have this idea of flying into West Virginia. I think Charleston is the capital, and then taking a Amtrak over to Charlottesville, Virginia, which is not in West Virginia. It's in the western part of Virginia, but it's still in that kind of Appalachia region. And that train trip is during the day, and it goes through the mountains and hills and everything. And I think it would be really cool. I think it's like a 6-hour train ride, which I don't want to spend a night in Amtrak, but doing like a full day will be cool, I think. So that's just something I'm thinking about doing. I haven't made any concrete plans. I mentioned in the last live stream and a community post that I have found if you use a Delta gift card to pay for $50 of the trip and put the rest on your Amex Platinum or Business Platinum, and you have Delta designated as your preferred airline, that it will trigger the airline incidental. So I'm going to try to use Delta to get there, but I don't know if they fly to the places I want to go. I've got to do a little more poking around. Or I might dump the whole idea. I've done other rip trips before where I plan out the whole thing, and then with about a month to go, I say, nah, and go somewhere else. It does mention here at the bottom of my screen that some viewers will see an advertisement in about 50 seconds, and I have no control over that. I apologize. So just a heads up. All right, now the channel update part that I was going to mention. I'm quitting the points and miles game. No, I'm kidding. Not really. How many content creators make a video that says "I quit" or something like that, and a picture of them, doing a thumbs down, and then you watch the actual video and it's like, I quit some really minor aspect, but they wanted you to think it was the whole entire thing. Like, I'm not doing YouTube anymore. Okay, no, that's not what it is. Um, Sorry about that. We got the cold going through our family. I'm giving consideration to kind of taking a big step back in what I'm doing relating to the fanciest part of points and miles. So I did this big trip to the United Kingdom and Sweden this past summer, and I talked about that forever. And it seems like people received it well, but I kind of felt like I was diving into it a little too hard, and people were probably sick of hearing about my trip. And that I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, I went to Europe once, so now I'm an expert on the topic. You know, I flew in international business class one time, well, two times technically, there and back. So now I know everything there is to know about the most advanced uses of points and miles. Not at all. I did feel like it helped my street cred a little bit because if you're going to talk about points and miles, you got to do at least one international business class trip, right? So check, I've met the bare minimum standard. But my channel has always had a bigger draw, at least this is how I perceive it, as more salt of the earth travel. Luke was doing a live stream last night and he mentioned check out Dugraz's channel. He has a unique uh, take. It's more salt of the earth type average Joe travel, which is what I want to be, but I've strayed from that a little bit. So I'm thinking about kind of getting back to where I started. When I first got into this game, I just wanted to take these weekend rip trips and look at old bridges and historical monuments, and I didn't mind if I stayed in a hotel that was clean, quiet, and comfortable, but not fancy. So, like a Hyatt Place, a Holiday Inn Express. Shoot, I'd be okay with a sleep in or I'm trying to think of what's a good example from like choice hotels. I don't know, something La Quinta. No, that's a Wyndham. As long as it has running water that's hot, there's not ornery kids making tons of noise, throw in a free breakfast, and if I'm traveling by myself, I'm a happy man. In fact, I have thought about doing a video talking about how, the decent hotels like that, a Hampton Inn, a Hyatt Place, for a lot of people are actually better than the high end fancy stuff, even if you're paying with points, because you get that free breakfast. You don't have to worry about status. You get what you want. So when I first started, that's what I wanted. And I'm still that way. That's me at heart. You know, I grew up in a town of Atumwa. It's a town in Iowa that's located here on my historical map from 1800s. Wapello County. It's your traditional town that was once a thriving manufacturing center, kind of, 20, 30,000 people. You got to about the 1970s, it fell on hard times. Um, Very blue collar, very kind of low income, but salt of the earth. So I have the expression, you can take the boy out of Atumwa, but you can't take Atumwa out of the boy. And I still feel that way. So for the channel update, what I'm strongly considering doing is for the entire year of 2024, getting back into that kind of travel, best roadside hotels, how to use your Wyndham points to book on Vacasa, how to use choice points to stay at a pretty good La Quinta. How can I fly on a domestic airline like American or Delta? The whole thing with points, you don't need to get any high annual fee cards. The $100 annual fee cards should enable you alone to take 4, 5, 6 of those kind of trips a year, no problem whatsoever. The benefit of getting connecting rooms in a hotel. So part of the reason I'm thinking about doing that is because there's just not as much of it on YouTube, at least not what I run across. Not for beginners, but also not advanced, kind of that moderate level, like the medium difficulty travel without going really high. And part of the reason is because for the aspirational stuff, the high-end redemptions that are hard to get, there's plenty of other channels doing those kinds of videos. I don't regret them at all. I love them. I like to be them. But I'm not filling a need that doesn't already exist. Excuse me. If I say, "Hey, guess what? With Amex points, you can book round trip to Europe using ANA for what is it, 85,000 points." It's really hard to find, but you can. There's lots of other people that explain that. If I talk about how you can transfer from Amex or Chase to Flying Blue and get a decent business class redemption to Paris or Amsterdam or some other city in Europe, that's true. But I'm not going to offer any new information, you know. But I think I do have some, maybe not new, but some well formulated ideas on how to do the domestic travel part of things. If you just want to fly to Pensacola on American, get a nice hotel, get a rental car, enjoy yourself for 4 days or a week, and fly home. When you're in Houston or St. Louis or Dallas, wherever your layover is, you want to go to a lounge, I can help you figure that out with cards like the US Bank Altitude Reserve and maybe two or three other cards where your annual fees really shouldn't exceed about $600 or $700 a year max. I know how to do that. So let me know either in the live chat or in the chat of the video itself if you think I'm hunting down the right path with that mindset, or if you're like, Dugras, you really need to report on those high-end redemptions. So thank you, PM, for triggering that long 15-minute rant. Let's catch up on the comments here. Thanks to those of you who've stuck with me. We're at an hour now, so I'll wrap it up soon. Sam says it's 8 degrees in the UK at the moment. Well, is that Fahrenheit or Celsius? Because let's see. If it's Celsius, that would be 40s, 50s? I don't know. Celsius. Okay, it's got to be. Yeah, there's no way it's 8 degrees Fahrenheit below freezing right now. Cesar says DC is great. He also says, I heard the next meetup will be in Japan. PM also mentioned Japan 2024. I'm laughing, but if I were to put odds out right now on the over-under, I'd say about a 65% chance that'll actually happen. That was mentioned in Uncle Luke's live stream last night, Luke's Points and Miles. I think he just mentioned it kind of in passing, but then like 4 or 5 people in the comments really latched onto it. And I've heard enough about really fairly easy business class redemptions to Japan that I'll do what I can to get there. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's 15 to 20 other people that'll do what they can to get there. Cesar says you got to rack up some MR points to transfer to ANA. Yeah, sometimes I feel hypocritical. I just did this long speech about being salt of the earth and all those kind of things. But then at the beginning of the video, I'm like, hey, I'm going to get the business gold card. I think it's pretty good, which is the exact opposite of that. In my personal philosophy, I will say I don't like high annual fee cards, but I'm totally okay with them if you're just getting it for the sign-up bonus and then either dumping it year one or getting a good retention bonus and keeping it for 2 years. Cesar Joel mentions Home Alone face thumbnails. Yeah, I assume that's back to earlier when I said so many content creators do the I quit videos with misleading thumbnails or just being shocked at everything. There's one particular content creator, and I can't think of his name right now, and I wouldn't say it even if I could think of it. He's a credit card creator who, I don't know if he does it full time. I bet he does because he's got lots of subscribers. Where I swear like 75% of his thumbnails are this. And I can't blame him because they get a lot of play. I'm being hypocritical because I've done it too. Sam mentions that hot water, lemon, and honey is good for colds. All good points. Thank you very much. YouTube Experiment asks, hello, everyone. Hi, YouTube Experiment. How are you doing? Is ANA easy to redeem points, or are they hard to redeem? They only allow a certain number of seats to use points. Never tried flying ANA yet. Well, I don't know if you mean you want to fly on ANA metal like you're going to Japan. I believe it stands for All Nippon Airways. Nippon is a Japanese word. If anybody knows what it means, let me know. Or if you mean using their points to book something else. As an example, I'll tell you the one that I know about. So you can use ANA points to book United Metal to fly round trip from a United hub in America, which includes Chicago, to any nonstop flight to the European area. So, like Brussels, Belgium, Amsterdam in the Netherlands, London, round trip. And I think it's 88,000 points per person round trip. I tried that and I think I did a video on it where it was possible. I frequently found one seat. I would occasionally find two seats. Once in a blue moon, three seats. I never found four seats. So even though it was the best use of points, I couldn't get my family to Europe using that method. I had to end up using directly through Air France, Flying Blue. So based on that, if you can redeem, it's an insane value, and their fees weren't even too bad. The surcharges and stuff, I remember, it was only around $250 per person, which isn't great, but it's very reasonable. But they're very hard to use, at least for that to Europe part. Now, if anybody has suggestions on flying to Japan on ANA, I know nothing about that. Feel free to chime in. Sam says, is YouTube feeling okay? It claims I've been streaming for 16 hours. I've been streaming for about an hour and 16 minutes, so maybe that's what it is. I don't know if my internet connection is slow or what, but after I've been streaming for about 45 minutes to an hour, it seems to lag a little. Hey, Stan the Credit Frog's in the house. He says, hey, Dugras, just catching up on the live. Welcome aboard, Stan. Check Stan out if you don't know. I'm sure you do. He's a big time Points and Miles content creator. So Stan, since you're just now in the house, we'll ask you your opinion. Earlier in the video, the theme was rental cars and using the US Bank Altitude Reserve to get rental car bookings. And as a side discussion, it was rental cars versus rideshare, Uber and Lyft. Which team are you on? Team rental car or team Uber? I'd love to hear your take. All right, well, we're going to wrap up in just a little bit here. I had like one or two canned questions that I'll get to. These are questions either I've seen other people ask, but it wasn't specifically on the community tab, or that I'm stealing from other people just to help fill space. One of the questions is around Wells Fargo and what's going to happen. I think on either the 15th or 16th of this month, they're supposed to reveal their transfer partners. What I think they're going to be, I guess the only thing that I would say about that is keep your expectations low. Maybe they'll hit a home run and they'll have all the same transfer partners as Bilt, but I really doubt it. I would say the most likely scenario is you're going to see some of the most promiscuous transfer partners, the ones that already do business with pretty much everyone. You're going to have one of the Avioses, probably British, maybe Iberia, maybe Aer Lingus. You're going to have Flying Blue, which is Air France and KLM. You'll probably have Virgin Atlantic, which you can backdoor into Delta with them. So that's nice, although availability can be a big challenge, and it's gotten worse in the last 12 months or so. You'll probably have something like Scandinavian Airlines, which no one ever uses, but it's on the list. I would think on the hotel side, there's a very good chance they would get Choice hotels. because they already issue the Choice Hotel credit card. So that would make a lot of sense. Hoping, a lot hoping that they would offer a 1-to-2 transfer ratio from Wells Fargo points to Choice, similar to how Citi does it. I'm not sure why Capital One couldn't get that deal. And then they might have something like a Core Unlimited that nobody cares about. Also, it'd be really cool if they got Wyndham. So that's just kind of my guess on what I think will happen. But don't get too excited if they do get Hyatt or American or something like that. Let's all throw a big party, but let's keep our expectations low and be excited if it does happen. So I asked Stan about rental cars versus rideshare. He says, I'm on team both. Team rental car for most trips, but if I'm in Vegas or some other city with crappy traffic, I'll go team rideshare. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Or like I did in England when I was in London, I used public transportation. When I went out into the countryside in Wales, then I rented a car. Stan mentions going back to the US Bank Altitude Reserve. Be sure to ensure you get 1.5 cents per point real-time rewards. Set your categories only to airline, car rental, lodging, and other travel. Yes, that's a good point. And I was going to mention it earlier as one of my caveats, and I forgot. When you first get the card, you need to go into your rewards page, your rewards portal, whatever they call it, and there'll be like a list with check boxes. They'll let you use real-time rewards on drugstores, groceries, department stores, those kind of things. But if you do, you're only getting 1 cent per point. So you'll only want to check travel, and I don't remember if they break it out by like hotel, airline, whatever, but all of the ones that apply to travel, make sure you check those and only those. I suppose if you want to cash out a penny point per point on grocery stores or drugstores, you can. That would be up to you. But Stan and I would both recommend only using it for travel because you're going to get 33% more value. 50% more value. Sorry. And there was one other caveat I was going to mention that I forgot. There is a minimum on car rentals and hotels. Now, up until about 3 months ago, the minimum was $250 on rental cars and I think $300 on hotels. They have since lowered that minimum, and I don't remember off the top of my head what it is. I'm thinking $150. So, like, if you had a super cheap rental car, like you're just renting for one day and it was less than $100, that would not trigger it. YouTube Experiments says, Los Angeles, San Diego, I both rented a car. New Orleans, I'll be doing rideshare. Is the Labor Day meetup next year for sure in New Orleans, or is this just a speculation, or you're referring to some other trip to New Orleans? I'm not sure. I'll try my best to be there either way. I've actually thought about doing a Dugras Reports meetup somewhere, and I'm not sure what that would look like or if there's enough interest. So I would envision that as like he clarifies this is a personal trip to New Orleans. Somewhere in the Midwest, like St. Louis or Kansas City, or I've actually thought about doing something really obscure just to kind of prove the point that points and miles can be used anywhere, although I'm not sure if people would love that. So one idea I had was like Rochester, Minnesota. So you could either fly into Minneapolis, rent a car, and drive down, or you can, fly on an Embraer jet or something from Chicago to Rochester for the last leg of your flight. I would be basically forcing everyone to have a layover, even people that live in hub cities. That way you can know what it feels like to live in a small market airport like I do. Or those of you that close enough could drive. The other one I thought of is in Council Bluffs, Iowa, which is right next to Omaha, Nebraska. There is a railroad museum. So it kind of takes my love of nerdy history, like the Union Pacific Railroad Museum, and travel, and merges it together because it's history. It's railroads, which is a form of travel. There's I think it's the Epley Airport in Omaha is like 3 miles away from there. I realize if I did a Dugra's Reports meetup, it's not going to be like the one in Vegas or even close. I'd be thrilled if I got 10 to 15 people. Um, PM says it's got to be some covered bridge in a backwoods West Virginia. Exactly, that kind of thing. We're going to meet at the Wheeling, West Virginia suspension bridge, and I have a video out there somewhere where I go to see it, and I'm not brave enough to walk across it, even though that was the whole reason I went there. You can't drive across; you can only walk across it. It's the kind of bridge that has a see-through bottom. It's got like a grating in it, and like I got like 20 feet out, and just I don't really have a fear of heights, but I do have a little bit of a fear of falling, and it felt very rickety. Um, and he says he's in for it. Yeah. By the way, totally random thing that probably no one cares about. There was a government grant to repair that bridge. Like a tour bus drove across it and halfway broke it, which is why it was closed to vehicular traffic. So I'm hoping someday that reopens. I love bridges so much. All right. So now that we've talked about concepts that are starting to get more and more ridiculous, let's go ahead and wrap it up here. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. And if you are, please click the like button. I'd really appreciate it. Consider becoming a member of Dugra's Die Hard for only $3 a month. Not trying to make a bunch of profit, just wanting to have a place to put my hyper nerdy videos that people like PM like to watch that don't play well on YouTube at all. And as always, may your spending be frugal and may your points be plenteous. Bye.